Okay, and then just look for the live symbol in the corner for me, sir.
Okay.
You said we're live. Go right ahead.
Just play the intro.
What do you get when you take a dash of the silver screen? A pinch of the golden oldies, and a smidgen of streaming. It's time for Matinee Minutiae with your hosts DJ and Toppy.
That's how we like to do it, boys and girls. Greetings. This is Toppy Smelly reporting live from the Marionette Theater in Spud Flats, New York. It's about halfway distance between where DJ live and I live. I'm your host for this, our second live streaming episode of Matinee Minutiae here on Univaz Network. Welcome. In the seat next to me is my friend, fellow podcaster, creator, and star of Matinee Minutiae, DJ Star Sage.
Good evening, Mr. Smelly. How are you this fine night?
I'm fine, but that is the shortest applause I've ever heard. You got to make that applause a little longer next time.
Well, they're really small people. I couldn't afford much.
Oh, all right. Well, there you go. Listen, kids, we're right here in the Marionette Theater. It's such a lovely place. I love it. It's so old timey and so decorative, and it just brings me right into Hollywood and movies and stuff. And DJ, we're not going to be sitting in the theater tonight. Do you know why?
No, why is that, sir?
Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you, because what we're going to talk about today is TV. And where is the TV in the Marionette Theater?
Is it in that old dusty break room?
It's in the old dusty break room. So we're going to head over there in very shortly. But first, DJ, we got some people that have been kind enough to shoe up in our chat room. Let's say hi to them.
Okay.
There's someone you might know. His name's Billy Star Sage.
Oh, I think I've got a mortgage with him.
You just might. And we also are very happy to see old Hunty or Hunt Cub here in the chat room. Hi, Hunt Cub. Thanks for showing up. And also our friend Tommy is here live in the chat room. Hi, Tommy. Hope you're well. He said before that Tommy said, well, he was told that there was some punch and pie. That's why he showed up.
I think you might have to ask the cleaning people. I think they took it away.
Oh, no, don't tell him that. Jesus. Oh, my God.
Well, he might have to wrestle for it, but I'm sure there's still some in the building.
Yeah. Old Hunty says hi. Hi, gents.
Good evening.
Well, what say, DJ, what should we do next? I'd ask.
Okay. Well, for those of you who may have missed our first show, we have this little gimmick here where we've got a special little magic machine here that picks the next program that we're going to watch. Now, at the end of the last show, we gave you a hint as to what we're going to be reviewing today.
Oh, yes. Now, supposedly nobody knows unless they've guessed.
That's true. Now, Toppy, you explained it to the listeners before that there was two ways to play. Did you want to explain the way it works again to them?
No, I think you should. No, you better do that.
Oh, right. We did just have to wake him up from the nap, so you got to give him a few minutes to warm up here, folks. So,
fine, but take it away.
Okay, so there's two ways to play Matinee Minutiae. Basically, at the end of each episode, we're going to have a drawing, and that's going to give us a hint at the next program that we're going to watch. Now, in this case, as you may have seen on our website at Matinee, Matinee, Minutia, the hard word Minutiae, matineeminutia.com. You'll see the paper scroll there saying what we're watching next. And for this episode, we are watching a legal drama television series that aired from 1957 to 1966. Now, if you wanted to wait until this episode, tonight's live show, you'll be wowed and surprised once we reveal. However, if you want to play along and watch the show before we have the live program, you can carry on in the chat room along with us. And if you want to do that, just look for the rabbit in the magician's hat. And there's instructions there. It will give you a spoiler. But be careful. Don't spoil the fun if you don't want it spoiled.
Yeah, really, what we want to do is give people who actually show up here in the chat room a bit of an advantage over people who, oh, I don't know, just listen whenever they want. That on demand stuff is highly overrated. No, it's the people that show up here live that we're concerned about, that we care. No, we care about everyone, but we care about the people that show up at the chat room more. And so we're going to try to do things that only you guys in the chat room are going to know about. And DJ doesn't know this yet, but because he's just learning this from me right now. But we're going to hand out prizes.
Oh,
did you know that, DJ?
wow. Mr.
Yeah.
Pockets here.
No, it's going to happen. Maybe not this episode, but when we can, I think that we should. We want to encourage people to show up here, and I think that the people that do show up here should have a first bat at getting the good stuff, maybe a little prize.
Absolutely. Now, so you were already starting the roll call here of our fine folks in the audience, but we have someone just trying to sneak in the back there, and I just wanted to reach out and say hello to our old friend Maren, who's joining us from the Midwest.
Maren, hi, welcome
Good
back.
evening. And here we go for applause. Okay, so Mr. Melly, we were going to go to the break room, but before we hit the break room, I think there's somewhere that we normally visit because we need to get an idea or give our listeners a better idea, or at least a nibble, as it were, of what's coming up. So let's. Do you want to take it away? Do you want to?
Let's head on over to the concession stand, shall we? Let's go. Hello. Oh, you're back again. Yes. Folks, this is Gertie, and she runs the concession stand here at the Marionette Theater in Spuds Flats. And Gertie, this is an amazing collection of objects and things that you've got here. Thanks. And I just want to say, let's take this first one. Folks, it's a mallet, a wooden mallet. Yeah, a wooden mallet. What do you think that means? I don't know, DJ.
Oh, maybe they're fans of walnuts. I know I like to use a mallet for my walnuts.
Well, how old-fashioned of you, DJ. Well, okay, mallet. Let's take a look over here. Oh, Gertie, what's this? Well, what do you think it is, dummy? It's a briefcase. Oh, a leather briefcase.
Oh, very nice.
Excellent. What's this? Looks like some food. Yeah, it's a big old donut. Because you know who like to eat. Oh, that's a hint about the star of the show. DJ, what do all these clues add up to? And should we reveal the shoe we're going to cover today?
Well, it's funny you ask there, sir, because even though we've got a fair assortment of things, I don't know if you noticed, but there's a faint odor about these things. They actually kind of smell heavily of cigarettes, or is that just Gertie?
Oh my God, you're right. Well, it's certainly not me. It's not me either. Okay, yeah, it is. But anyways, all right, Gertie, calm down. Gertie, by the way, has run the concession stand for years now, haven't you? Yeah, yeah, yeah. But keep in mind, folks, back in the vaudeville, back in the vaudeville days, Gertie used to do a striptease act. Woo! You
Oh,
know, I haven't lost my touch, have I? No.
yeah, keep back.
All right. For the final tease, we've got a theme song because this TV show did have a theme song. DJ, why don't you play that old theme song? It's very famous, very recognizable, kind of iconic,
All
you
right,
might say.
here we go.
Bum, 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 bah. Folks, that's right. Today we're going to do Perry Mason. We got trivia up the wazoo about Perry Mason and its star. And who might that be, DJ?
Raymond Burr.
Raymond Burr. Folks, boy, you are in luck today because we have Raymond Burr trivia that you're just not going to believe. I mean, this is DJ. We couldn't have picked a more interesting actor to be on our first TV program.
Indeed, and I think we should, fire up the old tube here so we can get this show on the
Oh
road.
yeah, because if you didn't, oh,
Oh,
what the hell was that, DJ?
I think
What was
that I think that it even smoked a little when I turned it on.
Turn it on again. Do that again. Put it on again. Oh, that was our black and white tube TV. You know, TJ, I almost gave myself a hernia when I tried to pick that sucker up before you got here. Holy Jesus. Do you guys remember how big tube TVs were?
Oh,
Oh,
they used to be the centerpiece of many people's living rooms.
that's right. Well, we're old timey here because this is an old timey theater, and well, they just never replaced that damn TV in the break room. I love the static. You know those old TVs when you turn them on, they had that static noise. Isn't that cool?
Hmm, you
Yeah.
know, I remember one time coming back from there being a thunderstorm outside, and back in those days, they didn't ground anything, electrical and whatnot. Anyways, long story not so short, dad went to turn on the TV, and he thought it was okay until flames started coming out of the back because lightning had struck the cable.
I've heard of that happening, but I never knew. Oh, Spuff is here.
Hey!
Spuffy. Spuffy.
Listening to us from the fair land of Oslo. Welcome, Spop.
Um, by the way, folks, feel free to jump in anytime if you got something to say in the chat room. We encourage your participation. DJ, let's get the shoe on the road.
Certainly.
There's a clip that I provided for you, and it's Bremen Burr #1. Can you play that, please?
All right.
Now, there's only one person in this case or connected with it who would have ready access to that kind of cash at that time of night. Now, who was it you saw coming out of your room right after you heard that shot?
Sterling, Lucky Sterling. Lucky Sterling. I killed him.
Yeah. Haunty just said that good old Gaiman Burr. We'll get into that later, Haunty, for sure. Uh, so, Perry Mason, I believe it started in 1956. Can you believe it, folks? 1956. Who knew they even had TV shows on then? But they did.
They sure did, and in, that time frame, what was going on in the world was that it had been about 12 years since World War II, and, but only 4 since the Korean War. So they
Yeah.
say that, we have time of prosperity as a result of war. Well, Elvis had just appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show for the 3rd and final time. Eisenhower is inaugurated for his 2nd term as US president, and a midair collision of a commercial DC-7 and a military fighter plane in the skies above San Fernando Valley kills 8, including 3 junior high kids on a playground.
Oh.
Plenty happened that year, including the first US nuclear-powered submarine logged its 60,000th nautical mile. Also, the FBI arrested Jimmy Hoffa for bribery. The Brooklyn Dodgers moved to LA. Eisenhower announced a 2-year suspension of nuclear testing. And after the Civil Rights Act was passed, Eisenhower had to send federal troops to Arkansas to basically supervise integration of the school. And because there are a fair amount of women in Perry Mason and the many roles, including his assistant, I thought I would put it into perspective of women's issues here. So the first legislation requiring equal pay for equal work wouldn't be passed for another 6 years when this show began. And before the no-fault divorce law in 1950 or 1969, spouses had to show the faults of the other party, such as adultery, and could easily be overturned by recrimination. Just finishing up here, until the Equal Credit Opportunity Act of 1974, women were not able to apply for credit. And until the Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978, women could be fired from their workplace for being pregnant.
Yeah.
So that is just an idea of what was going on in the world at the time. And in terms of TV at the
That's what
time,
I that's what I want to know. What was on TV when this damn show started?
when Perry Mason started, there were a fair amount of westerns on TV, probably half
Oh.
shows.
Oh, yes, there were a lot of westerns. Hey, I think Maren can hear us.
Way. And let's see here. So basically, westerns. I Love Lucy was in its last year. Leave It to Beaver had just started, and George Burns and Gracie Allen were wrapping up the end of their long run.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night,
Gracie.
Gracie.
Now, there's an interesting origin to Perry Mason. It's actually been in theatrical movies. It's been on the radio. And before all that, some damn dude was writing books. And his name, of all things, is, how do you suppose that's pronounced? Erie?
It looked like Earl to me, but it's
Oh.
spelling.
You're right. It's Earl, not Erie. Yeah, Earl Stanley Gardner. And he wrote, good Lord, I'm not sure how many, but a lot of novels that Perry Mason was in for many, many years. These novels just came. And sometime in the 40s, there were a couple of Perry Mason movies. Then began a series of Perry Mason on the radio. And finally, it came to TV. And that's and when it started, it was an hour-long dramatic series. There weren't too many hour-long TV shows at that time. Most shows were half an hour, even most of the dramas. I found out that the first hour long drama was a show called Cheyenne.
Hmm.
And Perry Mason came around not too long afterwards. So, um, what else do we know about this TV show? DJ, what do you got?
I know that one of the things that I read was the author, Earl Stanley Gardner. He was an attorney who later became an author, and he had written all of these books. Of course, as we were saying, this was a radio series before they got it turned into television, but they tried for years to get this made into the television series that finally aired on CBS. And they had many previous actors that were in line to take the role, but none of them got the approval of the author. And finally, what ended up happening to get the books turned into the TV series successfully was the author's agent got sweet talked by the wife, who had been an actress and had had over 60 film credits.
Ooh, that's right. Raymond Burr started out. He did some theater. Then he did a lot of radio. He broke into TV doing a lot of live TV shows because a lot of little shoes back then were done live. And that was, you know, an exciting time to be watching television because it's live and sometimes things didn't go so well. So he really owned, cre- shaped up as an actor um, in all those years on radio and live TV and stuff. And Perry Mason was his first big part, really big breakout on TV. Now, DJ, what would you say in the movies if you thought of Raymond Burr? And chat room, uh, uh, jump in there and put in what you think. If you could think of a movie with Raymond Burr in it, go ahead and put it in there. I bet you I know at least two that'll come up because it's certainly the two movies that I think of when I hear Raymond Burr.
So we'll give the audience a moment to respond, and we will proceed with some time passage here. So I don't have the Jeopardy theme, but we can da 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 da.
Okay, that's enough. Well, we actually had I don't know, so I'll tell you. I'll tell you, folks. The two movies I think of when I think of Raymond Burr is first of all the original, the first Godzilla movie,
Hmm.
and that was a movie that originated in Japan. And when USA decided bring that damn movie over here, they thought this is going to confuse people. We need to Americanize this. So somehow they hired Raymond Burr to come in and insert some new footage into the original Godzilla, and thereby that's how Raymond Burr, an American speaking English, who is not dubbed, somehow appears in the original Godzilla movie, and he's kind of a reporter who is observing, and uh, and 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 so that's certainly one of the things that, my goodness, I must have seen when I was a kid, and it was my first exposure to Raymond Burr. The second one is probably, well, one of his most famous movies was Rear Window, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. He was the heavy, he was the villain, and he was the guy that um, Jimmy Stewart was observing through his binoculars across the courtyard, looking through his windows when he shouldn't have been, and he saw strange things that Raymond Burr was doing in his apartment, and it sure looked like he was murdering his wife and chopping her into bits and
Oh.
putting her into a suitcase. So Raymond Burr, at the end of Rear Window, tried to and succeeded in tossing Jimmy Stewart out of the window, out of his rear window, and he fell and broke his other leg because the whole reason he's looking out the rear window is he's in a cast and he can't go anywhere and he's bored and he starts looking out his rear window with binoculars and spying on his neighbors. That's not a nice thing to do, but he did. And so that's probably a movie Raymond Burr is most well known for, but he did a hell of a lot of other movies and most often played the heavy. Now, that's because Raymond Burr was a sizable man, a man of carriage, a man who, well, he was big. And turns out he was, Raymond Burr was heavy from childhood. He always had a lot of weight. And and it made him, well, let's just say he was never the leading leading man type, but he was a character actor, and so it didn't uh, it didn't stop his acting career. Let's just say that. Now,
Now, I know that as a latecomer to the talent of Raymond Burr, I saw him in much more obscure parts, but they were certainly not less memorable. Like, he played a judge in Airplane 2, the sequel, with Leslie Nielsen. And then, of course, he was later on in one of John Candy's films, Delirious, where he played a soap opera writer whose stories came to life.
yeah, by that time, later on in life, he did a lot of cameo things because one thing that Perry Mason did, folks, is hmm, maybe one of the first TV roles that was absolutely associated with its actor. People loved Perry Mason and they loved Raymond Burr. And he did the show for 9 years. Then there was a long absence of Perry Mason, and he returned in the 80s to do something like 26 TV movies as Perry Mason. That's a lot of TV movies.
It sure is. And Toppy, I'd like to interrupt you for a brief moment as we are going to introduce a new regular part to Matinee Minutia. Folks, you have a few moments here to get up and grab a beverage or to visit the little Half Moon House, and we will be back with you in just 3 minutes.
It's intermission time, folks. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies. Everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now.
That was just a brief interruption there to let you know what time it is in our show, and we actually do have 3 minutes, so um, we're just gonna talk out of character for the moment here.
What? What? I don't know what you're talking about, a character.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm a card. I don't know about you. So there in the Pickle Hollows, has it been getting cold lately?
Well, today it finally did. Prior to that, it was humid and warm and redonkulously. It was just stupid. That's all I can say, DJ. Stupid.
Well, you know,
And Today, the weather finally shaped up and it got down into the 50s, which is where it should be right now.
For this time of year, yeah, but we haven't quite taken the air conditioner out of our bedroom because we have an old house and our air conditioner's on a cart. But we have one of those fancy thermostats at work that's supposed to tell you the temperature inside and outside. And I swear to you, the damn thing must be broken because it said it was like 70 out. And I leave the building and I'm like, what the hell? This isn't 70.
No. Oh, no. Where did they get that?
But luckily I was carrying my fall weight jacket with me, and I darn it, I zipped that thing up walking to my car. And then I saw a guy who was vaping outside the neighboring building, and that thing was so high tech, it looked like he had turned his iPhone into a juice box.
Mm.
It all lit up on the front of it, and I don't know what it was, but it certainly looked high tech. So
Oh, I'm sure.
we have about 45 seconds, and then we'll get back to the program or the program
The
for those
program.
you fans of our podcasting drag queens of the world.
I've got about half dozen to a dozen fast trivia facts
Okay,
about Perry Mason and Bremen Burr. So we'll shoot those off.
bang bang. I should have had a gun sound effect. That would have been perfect for murder mysteries.
Mhm. All right, we'll assume that everyone's back from the toilet. I mean the outhouse, and
Yeah.
refresh their beverage. Tommy, right in there, what you're drinking tonight. Let's see. I'll just pound you with a little bit of trivia here. Uh, Raymond Burr. Well, he really had a lot of his early acting experiences at Pasadena Playhouse, where he was there for quite some time. He was on Broadway in 1941 in something called Crazy with the Heat. Finally, he was signed by RKO as a contract player. He made his film debut in the 1946 Claudette Colbert John Wayne comedy. Who knew they were ever in a movie together? It was called Without Reservations, and um, and then he went on to just he did a lot of film noir movies where he was the villain. But he was cast in a movie in 1951. It was called A Place in the Sun. And guess what? He was cast as a lawyer. So maybe someone in the production of Perry Mason thought of that movie and his performance in that. And by the way, um, Raymond Burr was competing for the role of Perry Mason with Fred McMurray. Can
Oh wow.
you imagine Fred McMurray? It just see this is how iconic Perry Mason was, and how just nobody else could beat Perry Mason except Raymond Burr. It's just not possible. Also, Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. wanted to be Perry Mason, and by all accounts, the week and months and years that Raymond Burr spent uh, producing Perry Mason over 9 years was a job. It kept him real busy. And it was an hour drama, a lot of on location scenes. It wasn't all in the courtroom, although every program ended with the final scene in the courtroom. But he had to do a lot of location stuff, and it really took over his life for the next 9 years. Much later on in life, believe it or not, Raymond Burr kind of said, "You know what? Getting involved with Perry Mason was one of the worst moves I ever made in my life. And it's just because it took over for the next 9 years. He had no time to do anything else. And I think if you talk to anybody who does TV, that's probably true, at least as far as hour long dramas, because the production schedule is immense to churn out at the time. Folks, you're used to the seasons nowadays being 6, 10, 13 episodes. No, a season of Perry Mason was 32 episodes, hour long episodes. Can you imagine? Oh my lord! And he really, he really began to resent the pace that he was being put through, and I think he kept a stiff upper lip. And one of the things, his contract did run out at a certain point, and to his credit, I think he decided, you know what, if I end this, all my friends here on the show are going to be out of a job. And this speaks to his benevolence and his kindness and his consideration. And by all accounts, this man was very kind and generous. He stuck it out for another 2 years or more when he could have just said, I'm done.
And, on that note, Toppy, I was reading that when the last 2 of the TV movies were being produced, he had already been diagnosed with cancer, and he actually, decided not to have the surgery because he wanted to be able to pull through to finish those movies.
Right. And of course, that's, as DJ said, that's the 1980s TV movies, those 26 movies he did right up until his death. And like DJ said, there again, he had a choice, jeepers, I'm pretty sick. But he said, you know what, I want to keep going till the end because all these people are counting on me for this livelihood, their income. So that I think says a lot about him.
Now, something else that comes to mind when I watch a TV series like this is back in the day, they used to have people that had contracts with studios. So you would get, an assortment of talent, and this person had been on this show and that show and this thing. And I couldn't tell you how surprised I was to see some folks. I mean, you get so that you're bad with names, or you recognize a face or a voice but you don't remember their name. And here I am watching some of the first season episodes, and I'm like, wait a minute, isn't that the guy that was the talent agent in The Sound of Music in the 60s? And it was. And then there, one of the actresses that was on Perry Mason was Andy Griffith's like third season girlfriend. And then there was one of the older gentlemen on the show ended up being the actor that played Fred Ziffel, the neighbor on Green Acres. Are you there, Toppy?
Pardon me. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. We didn't
Okay.
we didn't lose connection. I wanted to just be sure. So yeah, a lot of interesting people passed through the doors of the studio making Perry Mason, and you might be surprised if you catch an episode of who was guesting that week.
Yeah. Two that just come to mind immediately. Burt Reynolds was in an episode, and Robert Redford was in an episode, and many others. I mean, this was how it was uh, in the TV land at this time. As they actors would cut their teeth in TV, and then if they were lucky, they would get a movie career going. And so it's not uncommon in much of TV in this era you would see like, oh my God, that's so and so, and probably a very young so and so. So yeah.
So earlier I talked about the woman who talked the author into turning this into a TV series. And I just want to take a moment to go back and mention her name because, of course, every woman is not just the sum of their marriage. And this lady was Gail Patrick Jackson, who was the executive producer of Perry Mason. And she's the lady I mentioned who had 60 acting credits before she sort of retired to private life for a little while and then became a television producer. And most certainly on the heels of Lucille Ball's success, she quoted her as the things that we learned from Lucy, because CBS originally wanted Perry Mason to be an hour-long live TV show. And she said, "Are you kidding me?" Basically, Lucy showed you that when you record a program in the studio like they did, you get comedy gold and you can just replay them to the end of time.
Hmm. Yeah. Raymond Burr might possibly, because of his experience in live television, gone along with it, but it wouldn't have been too far in where he would have said, "Hey, hi, haha, you're asking me to do the impossible," because Raymond Burr was in just about every damn scene in Perry Mason. That means every episode he's there, and he had to film that shit, and that took a huge amount of time, and guess what? A huge amount of dialogue. And if he had to do that live, Raymond Burr would have learned really fast. No, I can't do it. So Raymond Burr, um, because he had so much dialogue in every episode, resorted to cue cards that he would place strategically. And he had this kind of acting style where he had these shifty eyes. He would look the other actor in the eye and then he would look down. And it all seemed perfectly natural. I mean, you would not know he was reading cue cards, but he was. But he disguised it incredibly well. But yeah, even though it wasn't live and they were filming, he learned that, okay, kids, I can't memorize that much dialogue every damn day. So we're going to do cue cards, okay? Okay.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Ah, crap, I forgot. Sorry.
Well, you know what we should move into is perhaps the most interesting thing about Raymond Burr,
Mhm.
and that's that he was a very heavily, very deep, deep inside the closet gay man. And
Mhm.
this is not uncommon for this era. Think of Jim Neighbors, think of Roddy McDowell, think of so many others. Rock Hudson, duh.
Yeah.
They were not going to come out of the closet. Say what you will or disparage them, but they had a career and they weren't going to ruin it. And certainly, people discovering this about them is exactly what would have happened to them. Their career would have been ruined. So I do not blame Raymond Burr for staying in the closet. Really, his whole life, he never came out. Um, and there were a lot of ways that actors of this time disguised the fact that they were gay, and a lot of it was someone would write an article. Oh, so and so's went on a date with La Di Da, and they people would see the photos, and oh yeah, Rock Hudson's dating, blah blah blah. And to a certain extent, Raymond Burr did that a little bit. In fact, who would you think that the studios decided? I know, let's pair Raymond Burr up with Natalie Wood. So for a while, supposedly, Raymond Burr and Natalie Wood were a thing.
Oh,
And they sent them out on public dates so that they would be noticed and things. And it was just silly, but
they were
yeah,
they were each other's press agent, basically.
Kinda. Well, um, Natalie Wood was happy to go along with it because she was seriously getting involved with a much older man, um, uh, who she eventually married. What the hell was his name?
Wasn't he the guy that was on the boat when she
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Ooh.
Why I can't think of his name.
Save us, Jay. Are you still there?
Yeah. So, but someone tell us who the hell was he did um, God, I'm drawing a blank. But oh fuck, Robert Wagner.
Oh,
Duh. All right. Anyways, Raymond Burr was not happy about going out on these fake dates, so he decided he'd do something different. And whenever he was interviewed, naturally they'd ask him about his personal life, and he started inventing things, just pulling it out of his ass. And well, uh, uh, it turns out he was married 3 times. Sure, okay. Turns out he had a kid. Okay. Well,
sounds good to me.
where are these people? What happened to them? Well, they all died.
Oh,
Yeah, they all died of one thing or another. His kid had leukemia, and so he invented this whole history of these women that he had married, um, and uh, and it was out there in the press. People wrote about it. It seemed to be known. And when he was asked about in interviews, he would get all somber and say, "Because of all these deaths, well, that's just not something I'm going to talk about."
right.
He got around the whole thing by making up these stories and then saying, "It's too tragic. I can't talk about it." So good for him for getting around it and stopping the stupid pretend dates he'd have to go on.
Yeah, and it's good to know that despite having to live undercover like that, he didn't sweep his loved ones under the rug. In fact, when he did finally pass away, his partner was very handsomely provided for. They had a plantation, they had their own winery, and he was a avid gardener, and he even bred a variety of, I think it was orchids,
Yeah,
and
orchids.
he named one after his co-star from the series that played Della Street, his assistant, and for some 20 years, they had their own orchids that were, produced there on his property.
Right. So one of the things, whether Raymond Burr understood that Perry Mason had brought him fame and fortune. He was one of, if not the highest paid performers by the end the last few years of Perry Mason. Remember, on the air for 9 years. To keep him there, they had to pay him well, and he was paid very well for those 9 years. And one of the things he did was set up a home on some island in Fiji. And then later on, as you said, DJ, he started an orchid. I don't know what you call it, plantation or something. And the main man, his main squeeze, his confidant and companion for so many years, at least somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 years or more, was a man named Robert. And I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but it's Benavides, who originally was an actor who kind of didn't go anywhere. They met on the set of Perry Mason and just connected and uh, and stayed together for the next 35 years or so, right up until his death. And like you said, Raymond Burr left everything to him.
And to this day, I'm not sure that she's done any recent work, but he has a niece who seems to be the only member of his family that got the acting bug. But if you do a search for Raymond Burr's niece, you'll see a few things that she was credited for. I think they were just bit parts up until the 90s, so she's probably one of the many folks that have retired to private life.
Mm-hmm. And Marin in the chat room asks, why did they do the movies in Denver? And I believe that's where his ranch was. And uh, Raymond Burr had a lot of pull at the time. And if somebody in TV wanted Raymond Burr to do something, Raymond Burr was in the position of saying, okay, I'll do it. But I ain't traveling a whole lot of distance from my home because I like it here. And I don't have to do your stupid movie. So you want me? Guess what? You're filming in Denver. That's basically what that was.
Yes, and pardon me, in the chat room, Billy has mentioned one of Raymond Burr's co-stars, William Tallman, who played I'm forgetting what the official title of his role was, but
He was kind of the detective that Raymond Burr's Perry Mason had to find evidence, because in every case he needed someone to get evidence, and of course this guy would come through as this detective with the evidence at the last possible second, and that would win Perry Mason the case. So that was his role. William Talman played this detective.
and interestingly enough, some of the trivia on Mr. Tallman was that he apparently had a contract dispute for a while and left the show, but was brought back. And there may have been some sundry business where, just like some of the company that Mr. Burr kept wanted to be kept quiet, he was, going to the wrong parties and being around the wrong people.
Yeah, he ran into some trouble, and he had to he had some misdemeanor charges, and it was all in the papers. And CBS said, guess what, you're done. And he was off the show for, I think, 4 episodes. And Raymond Burr said, guess what, he's back in. He's my friend. I don't care what happened. Bring him back in, or there's going to be trouble. And because this is another way that the cast, the crew, had become a family over this 9 years. And Raymond Burr really stuck out for all of them. And certainly for this actor, he said, get him back in here. I want him on the damn show. And believe me, the producers did not want it, but they gave in. And Talman went back to work and returned to the role for the rest of the series.
So we're just in the last few moments here. I just wanted to mention another little bit of odd trivia was, many of the people involved with the show didn't necessarily do a lot of other roles, and one of those being Raymond Burr's co-star Barbara Hale, who played Della Street, the assistant. Well, at the time when she was on the series, she was known throughout the industry for her screams, and she was given the title of Best Shriek in Hollywood.
Indeed, he do. And she, she did well in that series. And remember, it came back in the 80s, and she was back on that show for another freaking 26 2-hour movies. So she had a good career out of that TV franchise.
Certainly, and if you consider today's production schedules, even though they're TV movies, that's the equivalent of doing an entire season of a regular TV show.
Yeah. And as we end, I just want to say that for me, I think it was a little bit brilliant in the way that he totally lied so consistently and inconsistently, because he would forget the details. But to the press and everybody, in making up 2 of his 3 marriages. He actually was married for a couple of months to someone, and it was like over with before it even started because hi, he was gay. But I want to say one of his last. He's described as being very generous with his money and his time with people that he knew, his friends, and it's said that when he found out that he was in fact dying, and he was still acting on Perry Mason in the TV movies, he would hold dinner parties where he could say goodbye to all the people that he knew. Um, as a matter of fact, he threw dinner parties for years and years and years. He was famous for his dinner parties, and he would do the cooking, and he was a great entertainer as far as that goes. But just just a lovely way to say goodbye to people and let them know. He let them know what he meant to them.
So, Toppy, I think that we are rounding things out to the end here. So, on our first show, we established that we were each going to briefly give our impression of the show on a rating scale of a 1 to 5. Now, what say you, sir? How would you rate Perry Mason if you had something else to watch? Where would you put it?
I would put it in 4. Look, it's a little dated now. Even those damn 26 TV movies feel a little dated, but for its time, it was compelling TV drama, and I got to look at it as a product of its time. And there was nothing else like it before, and it was a whole new style of dramatization. So I got to say, it was groundbreaking. It was super popular, and so I'm going to say that damn show. Let's give it a damn 4.
Okay, well, this is where we're allowed to be different. I didn't think it was a bad show, but some of those early episodes were very cookie cutter. It was all damsel in distress stuff.
Yeah.
I fell asleep during one of them, and
Ah!
when I watched the next one, I couldn't tell if I was just repeating the same one again.
Oh no. Yeah, I gotta say that trying to come up with a new crime and a new way to solve it really taxed the writers. And Raymond Burke, would criticize the writers and refuse to do things. There were many times where he said, "This script stinks, and I'm not going to do it." And because he was so valued, he was the show. He was Perry Mason. Quite often, they had to do what Raymond Burr said. And
I was gonna give this a 2, but considering that it was groundbreaking, I'll elevate it to 3, and then I'll compliment it by saying if I had to choose between watching an episode of Seinfeld and Perry Mason, I would choose Perry Mason.
ah, there you go. Well, hey, you know what? I think maybe in a lot of ways, Perry Mason has held up better than Seinfeld. Folks, yeah, we know that we're a little bit over. We don't want to hold you any longer than the hour here. Thanks so much for joining us.
And Toppy, just a quick question for you,
Yeah.
sir. Do you have an idea of what our next little thing will be?
I do. Get the magic coins out, DJ.
Hey, let's see. Let's find those coins.
Yeah.
All right, let's put a coin in that slot here.
Do it. Oh, how fun. Oh my God. Look, folks, there's a little piece of paper in this capsule. And DJ, our next presentation is going to come right up to Halloween. And I would love it if we all did a viewing of this movie. I got to give hints, don't I?
You sure do.
I can't tell you what it is right now, but let's just put it this way. It was 1931. It was freaking a horror movie of its day that was kind of groundbreaking. And Boris Karloff was in it. 1931. Boris Karloff. But guess what? I'm not talking about Frankenstein. So that's your clue. It's another movie.
Ah,
And it also features in it a very young Melvin Douglas and a very young actress. Who the hell was she? She was the old lady in Titanic who had the jewel and told the story of what happened to her, and then threw the jewel overboard. I don't remember her name, but yeah, it's the old lady who told the story of the Titanic. She's in it, and it's the film debut of a certain actor who would go on later to portray the Hunchback of Notre Dame. So those are the clues. 1931, Boris Karloff. It ain't Frankenstein. It's going to be lots of spooky fun. Join
okay.
us.
So this episode will be available for download at the beginning of the next week here, and stay tuned to our website at matineeminutia.com if you
Yeah.
want to go back over these hints. And if you want to play the game dirty, sure, go ahead and do it. You can find the hint next to the rabbit in the hat. So, sir, I'm going to go ahead and play our exit
All
music.
right. Before you do, DJ,
Sure.
um, we will be revealing the answer by Monday. Is that when it is?
Yes,
Okay.
right there next to the rabbit in the hat.
Yeah. And there will be a way for you to view this movie, and I hope you do, because if you watch it, you can play along with us here in the chat room next time. Take it away, DJ.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to Matinee Minutia. Our show is live every other Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Stop by univazpods.net, click the tower for streaming audio, and enter Discord for chat. Follow us on Twitter at Matinee Minutia. Have a comment, question, or a suggestion for a topic? Email us at matineeminutia@gmail.com. And of course, you can visit our website at matineeminutia.com. I have a voice.
I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice.
We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
univazpods.net. And I am now releasing the stream.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba.
Okay, if you want to check from the page there just to make sure that it's just the pre-recorded stuff.
All right, I shall. This will just take a minute to get
Uh-huh.
back there.
I'll unmute my phone.
Oops, that's not it. Oh, yeah, that's right. I gotta go here. Yeah, we're off. We're off.
Okay. Now, I don't know if Bertie uses Facebook Messenger or not, but I am going to send her the chat room link, which if she's using Facebook Messenger, it will pop up on her phone. But
Oh,
she
you
was,
see? Go ahead.
as I say, she was commenting on my posts on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
saying she had trouble getting into the chat room. So
Oh,
if she has the app, then it will take her right into the chat room. But if it's one of those things where if you're just going to the web page and clicking on it, it's trying to look for the app if you're on your phone. So
okay.
if I send her the link, then it should work that way. Let me see. Copy link.
Well, that's something. It still says live up there in the Google chat. Oh, maybe that's YouTube.
Oh, you know what? Yes, we are still live on YouTube. So let me go ahead and close
Bye, everyone on YouTube. Bye.
Bye-bye.